Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, the animal, Aaron Turner, and his co-host, the king of the ding, Paul Wolf, and finally, Frankie Stats Janisch.
What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It is episode number 20 of the Schmoedown Rundown. My name is Aaron. I am your host as always. Joining me today, he's back from assignment. He is Frank Janisch, the stat man. What's going on, dude?
That's right. It's great to be back, guys. I really hate that I missed last week with MO5, but I think my consolation prize was sufficient.
Yeah. We'll talk about it here in a second. Don't brag. Also here, a special guest panelist. You know him. He is the host of After Schmo, Mr. Brian Davids. What's going on, man?
Aaron and Frank, it is an honor and a privilege to be on the Schmoedown Rundown. I think I picked the perfect week to be on this show since Frank was in studio.
Frank Janisch, now famous. If you caught the Bibbiani Dewberry match, you know that Frank is now famous. And I want to talk to him. I want to talk to Frank about his experiences, because Frank was live in studio for both the team match and the singles competition. So Frank, give me kind of an idea of what happened at Collider Studios. You don't have to tell us any inside baseball that you might have found out. Just kind of tell me what your day was like hanging out backstage at Collider.
Yeah, well, it was a really awesome experience. Very thankful that Christian allowed me to go to the studio when he found out that I was in town. So that was really nice of him. Didn't have to do that. But when I got to the studio, kind of felt like the new kid in school, because I walked in and all these people were at a table for some sort of meeting, I imagine. And I just kind of felt like all these eyes on me, like, who is that guy that just walked in? So that was a little weird at first, but then Christian took me and showed me a little tour of the studio, and we walk in and I see the Collider table for movie talk that they use, and then the Schmoes set, that desk, and I saw the wheel and all the different wedges and stuff, and I'm kind of mad I didn't ask to spin it, kind of kicking myself about that one, because that would have been pretty cool. I saw where they shoot the post-match interviews. I got to walk through the curtain that everybody comes out, so that was kind of neat. I got to watch Nerds Watch and Tough Beats do their interviews, if you will. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Their promos.
Yeah, the promos. There you go. Which I didn't know was that Christian, he's off to the side of the camera and he's asking them questions, and that's what they're responding to. So when you see them talking about whatever topic or whatever they're talking about, their opponent, it's because Christian's asked them a question, and that's what they're responding to. So I found that pretty interesting that he's right there. Also, Christian is heavily involved in just about everything that goes on, as anyone would imagine. But he's right there. From, like I said, the pre-match interview to even the post-match interviews. He's right there by the camera watching all that go on. So it was really cool to see Christian in his element, producing and kind of directing everything and staying on top of things. And I thought that was really cool. And it just shows you how much he is invested in making this the best he can make it. I saw plenty of people, Copster and Cody, doing all the technical stuff, and yeah, Adam Smith, that's it. He was there, and everyone getting set up for everything. It was really, really awesome, and I did get to see Josh McCouga walk the wheel out. So he does still walk the wheel out, but it is a little bit of a hindrance to walk that thing. A chore, yeah, that's a good word, to walk that thing out and position it as well as he can behind the desk, and they got to get it right so the glare isn't on the wheel and all that. So, and I did see Nerds Watch and Tough Beats test spin the wheel, so I think that does happen, I believe, from time to time, as long as competitor is there. I'm assuming now, as long as they're there ahead of schedule, I would assume, to get a nice test spin in. But I did see at least those two teams. And one thing that I can tell you that Christian said was okay for me to say was that I did get to see the list of 30 competitors for the free-for-all. And what I will say is...
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Look at this guy right now.
He showed me the list, and it's a great list. It's a great list, and I cannot wait for this thing to happen, because it is going to be so much fun, more so than I ever thought. Beyond all of that, just being there for the recording and how it all comes together, and it was really awesome as a fan to be there, and I tried to soak in as much as I could. Because, I never know if that's ever going to happen again, if I'm ever that lucky again. So I wanted to appreciate it as much as I could because I really do love the Schmoedown, all the work that those guys over there put in, guys and girls put in over there. So it was a lot of fun. There was one more thing that I know, like we've talked about in the past on this show, whether or not the contestants can hear the questions clearly enough or it's loud enough. I will say when they turned the camera sometimes to the audience, that's kind of a decent distance away from where Christian and Mark or whoever else is announcing. It's a decent amount of distance. I could hear them loud and clear. If a contestant doesn't hear the question, it's because they're distracted or by something else or they're not focused, but they can definitely hear them. I think we can kind of put that to bed, hopefully. Real quick about Copster. I saw that guy running around. That dude works hard, and he's on top of his stuff. So major props to Copster for everything that he does, not just on the Schmoes Know Show, obviously, but in the Schmoedown, because I don't think behind the scenes people like Copster and Cody and Adam Smith and even Jonathan Voico. I think he was messing around he does something with the sound or the music and all that stuff. So those guys, they do a great job.
We got big things going on in this episode. Frank and I did get to sit down with Eliot Dewberry, one half of Team ETC, who just had his encounter with the Beast, William Bibbiani. And oddly enough, Frank also got a little post-match interview with the Beast himself live in studio. You will hear both of those later on. No real Schmoedown news this week, so we're just going to jump right into the team recap. This week we had the debuting team of Rachel Cushing and Ken Knapsack, known as the Nerds Watch. See what they did there, Game of Thrones, versus Tough Beats, Perry Nemiroff, and Jonathan Voitko. In round one, Team Nerds Watch got 10 points, Tough Beats with 7 points. And Frank, I want to kick this one to you first. What did you think was going on in round one? How did you think it was going to go?
I liked what I saw out of Ken because he had been, besides the Star Wars match, he hadn't been in a Schmoedown in quite some time. And I went back and looked at his 2 matches during the 2014 tournament. And even though he was 1-1, defeated Katie Sackhoff and then lost to Josh McCouga, he was answering 64% correct. He's a good competitor in this, and teaming up with Rachel, who also works on the schmoesknow.com site, for her first time in there, I thought she did really well, and we'll get into the second round stuff later. But her first round, I thought, she did pretty well considering that's her first match. And so I was really happy to see her performance. Tough Beats, man. I'm starting to get worried about them. And I saw that in the first round. I was like, this doesn't look like it's going to be, I don't want to say an easy match for them, but a match that they could handily win. And sure enough, they didn't have the best first round. And historically, through the first 2 matches, they're not great in the first round as a team. I think they're around somewhere in the lower 40s, upper 30% as a team answering correctly. And it was no different. With this match, that's what it came out to be, the averages. So that was concerning for me going forward into the second round.
What do you think, Brian? What do you think of round one?
Well, round one, really the big takeaway moment for me was when Ken, I can't believe I just said for me, the moment was when Ken was the only one to answer Walter Sobchak, Goodman's first name in The Big Lebowski. And that's when I knew Ken is here to play. Ken can be a factor in the Schmoedown. This was his first official match at Collider. Of course, the Star Wars match was an exhibition. So I was very curious to see how he would fare in official play. This guy can do it all. And he doesn't even watch movies. That's the best part. He does this without watching movies. So a couple notes up top. I think it's worth noting the Tough Beats entrance. They did the behind the stage, behind the curtain entrance. I thought that was kind of cool, a nice change of pace. The cameraman followed them around. I would like to see more of that for the majority of teams, just because it adds some energy that wasn't there previously. I told Aaron this before, but if they can perhaps put some curtains up, they might be able to make good use of that little alleyway that leads out into the main curtain. So something to think about there. But we should also point out that Tough Beats were playing on short notice. They were a replacement team for Sam Levine and Jay Washington. I heard that Sam Levine was injured playing the Larry King game. That's all the information I have at this time. But some of you might understand that. So overall, I was very impressed with Ken in his official debut at Collider. And then, of course, we have big things coming in round 2.
A couple controversies in round one that will just, I guess, they're not really controversies. The Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow answer, it's not worth a challenge because the name of the film is Edge of Tomorrow. The Live, Die, Repeat came after video release and it was never officially retitled. So let's just calm down there. R.I.P. Bill Paxton. Also, there was a lot of talk about Rachel getting the points for naming Jason instead of Friday the 13th as the franchise. That would not have counted either. Any kind of challenge, that answer to me would not have been overturned. A couple things I saw there in the comments that people were kind of getting a little miffed about, but I don't think either one of those would have been overturned. Do you guys think either one of those would have been overturned?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Let's move on to round 2, where it was the Nerds Watch rolling Oscars, which is Rachel Cushing's strong suit. 5 of 6 for 10 points in that round. Tough Beats got Spinner's choice. They decided to go horror. 5 of 6 for 8 points, plus a 1-point steal to get 9 points out of the round. Brian, we'll start with you on this one. What was your takeaway in round 2?
Well, Rachel Cushing cemented herself. She introduced herself to the world in this match, in this round. She defined the nickname, the Crusher. I partially wanted her to go by Cush/. I've talked about this before as a homage to Jerry Maguire, but regardless, she had perhaps one of the most dominant rounds that we've seen in this entire league. Frank, you would know better than me, but this was a dominant round. I don't know where it stacks up statistically, but I'm so happy that we have another woman who can absolute ball in this league.
What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, it was a very impressive round by Rachel. I know when she spun Oscars, a lot of people in that audience were very happy to see that happen. I think a lot of people were cheering for Rachel to do really well in the match, win or lose, but just hoping she had a good showing. Man, she killed in that round, and it was really impressive to watch. And, Knapsack, I mean, I don't think he was needed for like half those questions, to tell you the truth. More or less just to confirm her initial answer. I'm assuming I didn't get to ask her about that, but Tough Beats, they got Spinners and they did what they should have done and go horror, because Perry knows her horror. Everyone knows that. And, it wasn't the easiest of horror questions, but they did, grind it out and they came away with, the 8 points, and they did get that one steal off of Nerds Watch. So it made it competitive. And that was the thing when Oscars happened and Nerds Watch rolled through that round. People started thinking, I think, this is going to be a kind of a quick one here, maybe. And then Tough Beats gets horror, and then it just elevated the match a little bit more, and it evened the stakes in a sense, where we're like, okay, this is going to be a lot more competitive than we may have thought after Nerds Watch crushed the Oscars category. I'm still really, I was worried about Tough Beats coming out of the first round. I didn't like the way that first round happened or the way it transpired for them. And in the second round, even if it was horror, they had to go to multiple choice twice. They did miss the question. They didn't capitalize on it as well as they could have. So that was a little concerning. And going into round 3, things didn't get any better for them.
Let's all just take a collective shot. Rachel knows her stuff. It was impressive to see because the way she answered the questions. Anytime that a question is asked and competitors don't look around, they just look either straight down and they just answer the question. Question, answer, question, answer. That's, to me, is very impressive. Now, not when you sit back and you huff and you puff and I really don't know. I prefer the quick answers, and when you do something like that, we know that you know what you're talking about. And Rachel, a great debut. I had to message her after the match. I actually apologized to her for picking against her and said that I never would pick against her and Ken again. Very impressive debut, and like you said, Frank, when Tough Beats got up to the wheel and there was already 20 points on Nerd Watch's side, it kind of started looking a little grim for him, but then they got horror suspense, kind of turned it around a little bit, so it was a closer match going into round 3.
I just want to add, Ken Knapsack has been hiring talent for years in this business. So when he endorses someone like Rachel and he selects someone like Rachel, I think that says it all. This guy clearly did his research. He clearly surveyed the landscape, surveyed his options, and no surprise, he picked the absolute perfect person to pair up with him. And I just want to go back to one thing real quick. We've heard recently that Christian hired an official in case there are any scoring or question issues. We saw that at work in round 1. When Christian got the score wrong, he quickly deferred to the tables. Whoever was sitting at the table that day fixed it. So I was very glad to see that.
Riley was at the table, and there was Makuga at the table, if I remember correctly. So I don't know if that's two or that are always there, but for when I was there, that's at that table. And because there had been like some sort of scoring discrepancy, if Christian didn't know the score or whoever was announcing didn't know the score, there is a monitor there for that table to look at that's updated with the score from that table, I'm assuming. And then there's also a monitor in front of the competitors themselves, so they know who has what points. Just throwing that out there.
One more quick point I want to make about Ken. Did you notice Ken's grin on his face the entire second round when Rachel was answering those questions? Ken knew. Ken knew. In Knapsack we trust. But let's jump into round 3, where it was all on tough beats to get back in the game. Perry got the 2-pointer. Jonathan Voitko misses a 3-pointer that we will talk about here in a second, and they could not combine to get the 5-pointer, and it was the Nerds Watch TKOing Tough Beats in their team debut, 20-18. Let's go ahead and backtrack to that 3-point question for Jonathan Voitko. What is the name of Russell Crowe's character in Gladiator?
Will you remove your helmet and tell me your name?
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true emperor, Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
Frank, what happened, man?
Wow. I mean, just I couldn't believe it. Because look, I'll be honest, I'm not super great answering questions all the time when I play along the Schmoedown. You know, I'm for sure 50% almost all the time, and even into the high 60s sometimes. But so when I know an answer, it's like yes. But for this question specifically, because I feel like Gladiator is one of the most popular films in recent times. To me, it's one of the more iconic roles Russell Crowe has played, and just the name itself, Maximus. He said it's not his James Horner, but I don't know how it. For me, I was just, and a lot of people I think were, what is really happening? That seems like a fairly nice 3-point question, and it's. I don't know how to explain it. You just, brain farts were in the air that day, I guess.
To me, it's on par with Bespin. It's on that level. Because it's one of those answers which I can't really get mad at a competitor for getting a question wrong. There's a lot of factors. But just for this one, I was like, man, didn't get that right. I couldn't believe it. I don't know what it was like in the crowd. I'm sure everybody was gasping. Jonathan touted as this great player, and he has been in the earlier rounds, but I feel like in the later rounds, I don't know if it's the lights, I don't know if it's the pressure, I don't know what's getting to him, but it just seems like we still haven't seen the best of the Vulture. What do you think, Brian?
I call these type of questions, oh my God questions. And Frank, I feel like we need a stat category for oh my God questions, where they basically measure the biggest shockers in this fashion. And I think this might be the biggest oh my God question. Bespin, if you're a Star Wars nerd, that is something you should know. To the casual movie fan, I can see people getting that wrong. But Maximus is something that every movie fan should know. In the early 2000s, I had friends naming their dogs Maximus. I had friends with Maximus in their screen names, their AIM screen names. So this is something that was permeated throughout pop culture. And I'm going to make a sports analogy real quick. Aaron, I know you love sports analogies.
Indeed.
In high school, I was a basketball player. I was captain of my basketball team. I was great in practice. I was one of the best players on the team in practice. Unfortunately, there's something called court sense. I lacked court sense. When I was in the games, I was terrified. I could not play to the same level as I could in practice. And I feel like Vulture has that issue with court sense. I wouldn't call it stage fright, but for some reason, stuff that he knows, stuff that we know he knows, he just buckles in these big moments. And we've seen this multiple times now. So I hope that he can get over this, because I think the knowledge is there. He's just not accessing it.
And that's what concerns me about Tough Beats going forward, is that they seem to know this stuff, especially Jonathan, and it's just not happening for them. I'm a big supporter of Tough Beats. I like their dynamic and what they could possibly be, but after this match, forget what the other team did. It's the way that they perform themselves. It's just, I hope they can get together. I hope you're right, Brian. I hope that he can get over this and really be the team that we think that they can be, and especially Johnson going forward, be the competitor that we hope he can be, especially if we want to see him compete in the singles.
And I told you, Frank, I told you off air, this question for me is kind of in that realm where it just affects me differently. Because I told you, Frank, a story about how when I went to see Gladiator, I went and took a girl on a date on a Saturday, and I went back to see Gladiator on Sunday, and I saw it Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. I saw it 7 days in a row. So when he missed the question, it kind of hurt me deep, but that's just a me problem. That's a me problem that has nothing to do with this match at all. But let's talk about the match as a whole. And Frank, I'll just kick it back to you. What did you think of this as a whole? What do you want to see from Tough Beats? Who do you want to see him take on next? And who do you want to see Nerds Watch take on next?
Well, Tough Beats is, I think, in line to take on 6 Degrees. I don't know if that's more or less confirmed, but it was talked about in the post-match. So I think that matchup does make sense. I think they do have the same record of 1-2. I think that'll be a good match. And honestly, the way Tough Beats played this last match, I would give the edge to 6 Degrees. I will not count out Tough Beats. And the reason why I would give 6 Degrees the edge in that match is because 6 Degrees is one of the few teams to do really well in that first round, and that can kind of carry you into it can carry you through a subpar second round. Other than that, it's going to be a fun match to watch. For Nerds Watch, I'm not going to say I'm sold on them because they landed on a category that they're good in, that everyone knows they're good in, and they did their job. Rachel did her job in answering those questions correctly because that's one of her specialties. Well, how do they perform when things don't go their way? That gives you a true showing of what a team's made out of. And I think that will also bring forward Knapsack's knowledge more, too. I want to see him be a little more active in the category, especially in the second round. I want to see more from Knapsack in that second round where it's not so dependent on one player because it's their strength. And that's great, but when things don't go your way, I want to know how they do in there. I mean, IGN, that could be interesting.
And like you said, it's a good test of what a team is when they face adversity. I like that point. What do you think, Brian? Final thoughts on the matchup?
I think the big story here is Rachel Cushing. We have been waiting a while to get another strong lady competitor in this league. Christian has been searching and searching, and he had one in his backyard this entire time via schmoedown.com. So I'm really excited that we have another great female competitor in this league. Like you guys, I want to see Nerds Watch. I keep trying to say Nerds Swatch instead of Nerds Watch. It's just the way it's spelled. But I want to see them face Team IGN. They're the two new teams on the block, and they're both potentially very good. So I would still give the edge to IGN just because both of those guys seem strong, whereas Knapsack is kind of a wild card. He knows what he knows really well, but given the lack of movies that he's seen over the course of his life, it's going to hurt them at some point. But I still think it would be a great match. But overall, Rachel Cushing. And yes, 6 Degrees, they got to face Tough Beats at this point. Specifically, I also want to see Perry and Miss Movie square off. That is a singles match that is so evenly matched that I think it could be something pretty good.
And real quick about Rachel, she was also there for the Bibbiani Dewberry match, and I was right next to her. She knew a lot of those questions. So I know I just said, she got the category that's one of her specialties, but, I'm telling you, man, she knows her stuff, and it's going to be really interesting to see her in the next match, and I cannot wait.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say if she's good in Oscars, then she's probably really good in other categories too. So I'm not chalking this up as a one category wonder like a Mountain Dewberry or something.
We're going to see a lot going forward. IGN versus Nerds Watch. That is very interesting. That is a tough one. That would be a tough one to call right now. I also would probably give the edge right now to IGN, but I don't know. Ask me in a month or so after we get a little bit more knowledge. Let's jump to the singles recap this week. It was Eliot the Mountain Dewberry, interesting nickname, versus the Beast, hashtag it growl growl, William Bibbiani. It was a battle to see if the Beast could get back on track or if, as Dewberry did say, is he a one-hit wonder? In round one, very closely matched as it was Bibbiani getting 6 points and Dewberry getting 5. What did you think of round one, Brian? Did it seem as evenly matched on paper as it was in real time?
I was shocked that no one got Paul Hogan correct as far as who played Crocodile Dundee. I mean, of all the layup answers for Bibbiani and Dewberry, I can't believe they both missed that question. Paul Hogan. But besides that, yeah, it was an even match to start. I was a little shocked about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles question. Perhaps there should be some clarity moving forward about if there is a subtitle they should just write the subtitle instead of the entire title, because Bibbiani barely made it past the clock, or he barely wrote it out in time. So really the takeaway from round one was the fact that, yeah, it was evenly matched, but I'm surprised that no one knew Paul Hogan. I can't say it any better than that.
Jump back to you, Frank. What did you think of round one? Was it evenly matched in your opinion?
Bibbiani, I think, did what we expected him to do. He got 75% right in that first round. It was Dewberry for me that I was wondering how he would fare in the first round. Now there's 2 extra questions in this first round that he's never been in this kind of first round, and he got 5 out of 8, which is a little above what he's been capable of in the past couple matches. So I thought that was interesting to see Dewberry pretty much hang tough with Bibbiani, just being down a point going to round one. I mean, coming out of round one. That was a great position for Dewberry to be in. I don't think he could have asked for anything better but a lead, which was kind of unreasonable to to think that he could do it going against Bibbiani, and given his own history. That's what actually stood out to me, is that Dewberry kept it within 1 point coming out of that first round, and that was about as good as it got then for Dewberry.
I think with Bibbiani's first performance with Andreyko, I think that's still fresh in a lot of people's minds, and we just kind of expect, like, oh, he's going to get them all. And he did have a great score, and he had a great performance. The points just did not amount to a big sum like it did in his first match. So I think people need to kind of curb their expectations there. And Dewberry came in very relaxed, like in your face thing. He had a decent promo at the beginning. I thought it started off slow, but it really kind of came around. I like the way that he came into the match, though. He's a lot more loose, and Bibbiani was very theatrical, and it kind of looked like it even wore him out a little bit. So I kind of liked Eliot's strategy there. It didn't seem like Eliot was as close in the match as the score indicated for me most of the time. But let's move to round two. It was Bibbiani rolling classics and sticking with it. He goes 4 for 4, getting 7 points, plus he also got a 1-point steal for an 8-point round. Eliot takes mixed bag for mixed results, going 3 of 4, equaling 4 points. Frank, were you surprised that Eliot took mixed bag? And what did you think of the round?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised Eliot took mixed bag. Well, he is no Dan Murrell. I guess he might not have seen that match all the way through. I don't know. I mean, or didn't remember. So I was curious why he would take mixed bag. I don't recall what else was on the wheel that he could have got. So I liked the theatrics of it for sure, but it was not the greatest or smartest move on his part. And another thing for Bibbiani, when he landed on classics and took it, a lot of people were kind of like surprised, like, what are you doing taking classics? I mean, do they not know who he is? This guy loves film. I mean, absolutely loves it, adores it. And so for him to pass up classics would have blew my mind. And so when he got classics, I was like, perfect category for him. I think he's going to nail it. And he blew through that second round. We were talking about, or Aaron was talking about, when someone answers it right away, they're just looking down. That's what Bibbiani was doing. As soon as he heard it, he had the answer. As soon as he heard it, he had the answer. And that's one of the few intimidating things you can do in the Schmoedown, sitting across from somebody, is as soon as that question comes out, here comes the answer, and it's just kind of like this rapid fire. And that's got to strike some sort of fear into your opponent that this person really knows what they're talking about. So I loved the second round. Unfortunately, Dewberry did his best to play it smart. He went multiple choice 3 times, came away with 2 points out of the 3 multiple choice questions. And of course, Bibbiani picked up the steal on the other one. I think Dewberry did all that he could do.
Now, Bibbiani does make an excellent point in his, well, I shouldn't say it's a point. He makes a really great statement in his post-match interview, which we'll get to in a second. But Brian, let me get your thoughts on round 2 performances. What did you think?
Drew McQueenie, in his last match, spun the 70s, and he took it. And he made a statement to the rest of the league: this is who I am. You're going to have to face this at some point. And I think Bibbiani saw that, remembered that, and when he spun classics, I think he wanted to make a similar statement like Drew McQueenie did, that I am going to be dangerous in every category on this wheel. Yeah, I struggled in scores and soundtracks, but most people would spin away from classics. He took it just like Drew took 70s. So I've always felt that these guys are going to be competing back and forth for belts someday. I feel like they're the bird and magic of this league. They are these crafty veterans that have so much knowledge between the two of them. So I feel like this was a statement in response to McQueenie's 70s call. As far as Dewberry, it concerns me when we just saw Dan Murrell stick with mixed bag, it concerns me that he's not following these other matches as closely as he should. And I don't want to speak for him, but it implies that he's not current on every match. He's not studying the matches like he should. So how a different category would have affected this match remains to be seen. But I do feel like he shot himself in the foot with that selection. But the round went the way it was supposed to go. And I love when Josh McCouga booed the mixed bag selection. Anytime McCouga boos you from the crowd, that's saying something. But like you said, Aaron, I never doubted for 1 second that the Beast wasn't going to take this match. It just seemed like he was toying with Eliot a little bit. I
think mixed bag is becoming a deceptive category because if you're not feeling movie release dates or you don't want to land on classics, you take mixed bag because you might get it, you might not. I think that was Eliot's. I think that Eliot's thought process was what, and I can't speak for him either, but I think it was more like, well, I mean, mixed bag, more than likely I'm going to get something that I know, and it's less of a chance. If I have to answer like a movie release dates or scores and soundtracks, it's only going to be one question. It's not going to be four. So I think that might have been part of the thinking, and that makes a lot of sense. But it just didn't seem like it was going to go his way. The open range question, holy cow, holy moly! And
is that one of the hardest questions in this league?
That is a question that when I heard it, took a step back and I was like, what does that even mean? Like, it's the character, here's the actor, but what is the character's real name? It's like, what? It's like a double compound question. I was like, I don't understand. And we actually talked to Eliot about that in the interview that you'll hear in a little bit, and he gives his thoughts, and it's actually pretty funny. But that was the big takeaway for me. It just seemed like Eliot had a plan in place with mixed bag and thought, well, yeah, this is going to be beneficial for me. And then when he said, I'll take it, and everybody was like, oh, I don't know. It kind of threw him for a loop. It might have even thrown him off a little.
I think the bigger point here is that mixed bag isn't a death sentence if you get it. It's certainly not easy. It's not a walk in the park, but it's not as dangerous as movie release dates, obviously.
And it can't hurt you necessarily as much. Like I said, you could maybe get one bad category that you're not good at, and it'll cost you maybe 2 points instead of six or 8. So it doesn't necessarily doom you the entire round. Go ahead with that.
All right, so I got Real Rejects numbers here for that mixed bag. They got 2, 4, 6, 8 points out of 6 questions. They went multiple choice twice, and they did not capitalize on the multiple choice. So they missed 2 out of 6, but yeah, they got 8 points out of the 4 that they answered correctly. So it's not too shabby for a mixed bag category.
I still can't believe the Wangers didn't give them movie release dates. That's why I remembered that moment.
And that's why the Wangers are no longer a team.
There you go.
Let's move on. Let's talk about round 3, where it all rested on the shoulders of Eliot the Mountain Dewberry. And unfortunately for him, he missed all 3 of his round 3 questions, allowing the Beast to TKO Eliot Dewberry 14-9 and get back on track. Brian, give me your final thoughts of round 3 and the match. What did you think?
I feel sorry for Beast fantasy owners. Is this, I don't play in the fantasy leagues, but is this a nightmare scenario where the opponent is not able to swing it back to someone like the Beast to where he can get more points? Because, 10 points were left potentially on the board because the Beast never got to answer a question. So is this kind of the worst case scenario for fantasy players?
It is a good point that you bring up, and he is on my fantasy team, so I definitely feel that hurt. You are missing out on some points, but I'd rather take the 14 that I did get as opposed to the 4.5 that I would get from Dewberry. So it's kind of a give and take.
Sure. But yeah, Dewberry, just for some reason, it just wasn't going his way. I think he was still hung up on the open range question. He was still hung up on the mixed bag round, and he was just on tilt at this point. Instead of Da Vinci Code, he said angels and demons. And so from that point on, it was just over for him. And the Princess Bride quote, it just wasn't happening for him based on his reaction to round 2. He was so out of the match. And we've seen this before. Someone gets so worked up about the result of a wheel round that they're completely out of it for round 3. And the Beast just got to put his feet up and watch it happen.
Frank, what'd you think, man?
Yeah, once he missed that Da Vinci Code question, I was like, you need every single point you can get in this third round to have a shot. You know what I thought the Princess Bride question, the quote, I really like Princess Bride and I watch it fairly regularly, but and I couldn't even get to there probably because I was even rattled at Dewberry's second round, so I could see how you missed that one. But yeah, it just, and then going back to Bibbiani not having the opportunity to get those points, that's where I do think, Aaron, we haven't discussed like TKO bonuses or KO bonuses, but I think there's a legitimate argument to be had that if you have a fantasy league, I think it's fair enough to decide on a point system that for how many amount you guys agree to for a KO or a TKO. And I think that's fair because your guy gets a TKO and you have 14 points. And you have the beast. So, he could have only walked away probably, even with the TKO, like 16, 17 points if he's lucky enough. But even then, it's probably a KO. So if you're in the fantasy league and that's your issue, I'd say, definitely bring it up if you don't have that kind of system in place. Real quick note on Dewberry, he now has the lowest point total for fantasy points through one match. So he's got that going for him.
Wow. Okay. All right. Great. Man, the stats do not lie. I'm all about adding a TKO and KO bonus because that's just going to do nothing but help me. So the more fantasy points, it's not like we're playing for anything right now. We're just currently playing for bragging rights. But I'm in a complete agreement with you guys. After round 2, it just seemed like Eliot was dangling on the hook, and it was just a matter of time before he fell off. And unfortunately, even the Marvel question in round 3, which is something that's in Eliot's wheelhouse with the who gets the ether at the end of Thor: The Dark World, I thought he would absolutely nail it. I know it's a little bit more obscure of a question. You would think it's maybe Odin or something like that, but I was surprised that he didn't get that one. And for that to be the deciding factor, that just kind of added a little bit more sting to his loss there. But in the post-match interview, Bibbiani made one hell of a statement when he said that he is not a fan. He's not a fan that talks movie discussion. He is a professional film critic. That is stiff. That is some stiff words. And he called out, not only did he call out Drew McWeeny, he called out Mark and he called out Christian. So Brian, let me get your thoughts on what Bibbiani said first about the film critic versus fan argument. What did you think about what he said?
I noted that quote. I was thinking about it quite a bit, and he's basically saying, look, I do this for a living. I'm expected to know these things. I should know these things. So when people marvel over the information that he's able to recall, he's basically stating, guys, I've been doing this as a living for quite a while, so it shouldn't be that big a surprise that I do know these things because it's related to my occupation. So I like that he kind of squashed the hype over him knowing so much stuff, because for guys like McQueenie, this is just another day at the office. It's just a different format. It's a trivia contest, but every other day of their lives, they recall this information for columns and books, and it's just another way of delivering that information that they use on a daily basis.
What did you think, Frank? What did you think about what he said, and what do you think about him calling out McWeenie and Christian and Mark?
I think concerning what Bibbiani had said, I think Brian hit it pretty well on the head there, that, this is what he does for a living, and if he didn't know this stuff, he wouldn't be a very good critic or a reviewer, So I think that was a very accurate statement by him. And I'll just say I saw him there for the Tough Beats Nerds Watch match. He takes this pretty seriously, almost as seriously as Roca, I think, because he's there and he's tallying up whatever he gets right or wrong. I don't know what exactly he was tallying, but they would say a question, and I'm sure he's saying the answer in his head, and he's scribbling something down on a piece of paper. So, and I'm sure he does that for every match that he's there watching. So he's always testing himself whether or not he's playing or not. So I think that was something that I learned about Bibbiani in my time there that was really interesting and cool about him. So, if anything, I became a much bigger fan of Bibbiani than I already was.
To that point, after the scores and soundtrack debacle, I said, this is the kind of guy who's going to go home and he is going to play as many scores and soundtracks as he can to improve that portion of his knowledge. And so when you just said that, that gave me even more of an indication that he definitely has probably had some late nights combing through popular scores and soundtracks to make sure that weakness is never exploited again.
Now let's talk about Eliot and what he said in his post-match interview. He seemed very relaxed. He was drinking beer, talking with Makuga. Just kind of the Eliot that we've seen in team and now that we've also seen in singles with the relaxed attitude, kind of, I don't care. I'm just here to kind of play the game. And what did you think of Eliot's post-match interview, Frank? Do you want to see more of him in singles? Do you want to see more of him as a team? What do you think?
I'm not going to lie. I thought his post-match was hilarious. And because I think he kind of took this idea of everybody takes the Schmoedown so seriously. He even says this in the interview we had with him, but it's also very evident in this post-match interview, and that, by him not taking it so seriously, it pisses people off, right? And it's fun for him to do that, and I had fun watching it because I was just like, this dude just doesn't care. You know what? Screw Christian, or what, he'd say something ridiculous, and it would piss some people off, and it would make some people laugh. I had been against ETC, but I've since come around on them recently, and I find them very good for the league. Actually, everything that he said, I was just laughing. It was hilarious, and you know what? I could see him having fun doing that.
What did you think, Brian?
It seems like Ricky Schroeder has rubbed off on Eliot a little bit, even though Ricky Schroeder was not present. Because Dewberry, before, he was kind of the straight guy in the arrangement, while Ricky was kind of the outspoken one. So he was kind of repping both personalities despite being a singles match. That's really my only takeaway as far as Eliot in the post-match. Yes, he was a good sport when it counted. Frank, I have one quick question for you.
Sure.
Did you happen to ask Christian about the increase to 2-pointers in round 3? He said on Twitter that he wanted to raise the stakes, but did he give you a deeper explanation about the point change?
Did not enter my mind. All I know is that I had overheard something that said, like, we just threw it in last week. So I'm not sure exactly the reasoning behind it, but that would have been a good question to ask.
The world may never know, as none of us know why that has happened.
Maybe they read the comments. I don't know.
I just want to reiterate a very simple point about this. Given the wrestling influence on the Schmoedown, a professional wrestler like Booker T, a legend, he legitimizes the Schmoedown. To me, it ultimately doesn't matter what he's saying as he's endorsing the Schmoedown, just like Jordan and Gatorade or Barkley and Right Guard, Tiger Woods, Nike, whatever. And that stamp of approval is invaluable to a growing league like this. Plus, they're able to share audiences with his show. So I think people are missing the big picture when they talk about the Booker T segment in the Schmoedown.
Yeah, I see a lot of comments about, well, is Booker T going to compete? Is Booker T going to be a commentator on the show? And like you said, Brian, that's not why Booker T is a part of this. And I'm glad that he is, because as a wrestling fan, it's great to see the Hall of Famer and 5-time WCW champion be on something that you really enjoy.
Look at you.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm a big fan. Harlem Hangover, great finisher. But anyway,
Wow.
It's just something, man. I tell you, man, him and his brother Stevie Ray, kayfabe brother, were 7-time WCW tag team champions as Harlem Heat. But anyway, I don't know anything about the guy. But anyway, it's just, I think everybody kind of needs to curb their expectations when somebody like a Booker T, like you said, Brian, once again, gives that stamp of approval. It's nothing but legitimizing the league. What do you think, Frank?
I think it's great. There's someone else that's well known, maybe not in your own circle of pop culture, but there's someone else out there that has taken an interest in this, that's fairly well known, especially in the wrestling world. And I think that's great, because everyone else is clamoring for The Rock to show up, but when this other wrestler comes in, they're like, get out of here, but I don't have time for you. I don't get it. Like, I just don't get, like, why people are so against this. Like, it takes up like a minute. You're already dedicating 40 minutes to this match, to this YouTube. What's another minute? And it's inconsequential to your life. Come on, guys. Did
you guys remember do you guys remember those Tommy Mansky baseball instructional video commercials that used to air like crazy in the 90s?
Oh, of course, with Fred McGriff, former Atlanta Braves first baseman, as the endorser.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going. Fred McGriff endorsed those videos, and they've taken on this cult-like status. People know those videos because of Fred McGriff. So I feel like Booker T is serving the Fred McGriff role. So I think this is bigger than people realize.
Booker T, the crime dog. of the Schmoedown right now. Is that all we want to talk about with that match? Want to move on?
What do you guys think of Beast's intro with the bloody box of
Oh
candy?
yeah, okay. Let's actually let me back up a second. We'll talk about that. A point that I didn't make that I want to go back to is: did we notice in the intros the new spotlights that were on the curtain? I like that little touch. I don't think I'd seen that before. I could be wrong, but I don't think we'd seen that yet. I like that kind of spotlight intro. Brian, you had mentioned off air about Bibbiani's entrance. Tell me about what you liked about it, and what did you think?
Well, I like that he brought out a box with blood on it. It reminds you of Seven, of course. And Christian threw out the idea that it could be JTE's head. And part of me thought, oh my God, is this like a Breaking Bad Tortuga situation? Did the Beast get a mold of JTE's face? And is he going to pull it out of that box? Ultimately, he pulled out candy, but at some point, my mind would be blown if he pulls out a version of JTE's head that is lifelike, made by Greg Nicotero, perhaps, a lifelike JTE head, and pulls it out. And if the smack talk gets to that level, just take all my money at that point.
Or it could have been perhaps the skull of a Triceratops tops.
There you go.
Frank, what did you think of Bibbiani's entrance? Did you notice the spotlights as well?
Yeah, I noticed the spotlights. I thought, no, that's a nice different touch. We'll see what happens going forward because, Christian and the guys over there, they're always tinkering with, like, what was it, last match, the camera angles behind the curtain and all that, and now it's these spotlights. So, they keep tinkering and keep adding, subtracting things and trying new things out. So, it didn't bother me or anything like that. So I think we'll probably see it going forward. As far as Bibbiani's entrance, I just love that this dude goes for it. It makes it so enjoyable to see somebody just go all out. And I mean, he's got all this blood all over, and he's throwing candy everywhere. And let me tell you, that blood stuff was like getting everywhere. And it was
all over his face.
Yeah, and it stayed, and he could not wipe it off. I mean, the last time I saw him before I left, it was still like some stuff on him. I mean, that was some pretty legit stuff he got, I think, So
Looks like you were front row at a Gallagher show.
Aaron, what would you rather see? JTE's head in a box, a lifelike version of his head in a box, or a lifelike JTE mask where JTE has to play someone like the Beast, only the Beast is wearing a lifelike JTE mask, a la Bryan Cranston and Heisenberg at 2013's Comic-Con.
Both of them equally horrifying.
Oh my gosh!
I don't think I would want either one of those.
I'm having nightmares right now. Oh.
Please, no one make that. Please,
that would take JTE out of the match instantly. Beast would win instantly because JTE would get in his own head. That's literally and figuratively.
Listen, I know there are Schmoedown fans out there that are very creative. The guy that created the wheel, I'm sorry, I forgot your name once again. It's the second time. I apologize. Please don't make that. Please don't make a mold of JT's face. Please don't do that. That's horrifying. I don't want that. That scares me to death.
That's all that Collider needs is get in a box with a head in it. And
it's JT's head. Oh my God. I can't even think of it. That's horrifying me. I'm not even gonna be able to sleep. But let's actually, speaking of the Beast, Frank, you got to talk to the Beast after his match, right after, so you got his hangover thoughts. So let's get to those right now. And right after that, you're going to hear me and Frank and our sit down with Eliot Dewberry. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
All right, Bibbiani, congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
How did it feel to come back from that TKO loss you previously had?
Well, it felt good. It felt real good. I think we're all surprised that I lost against JTE. I think even JTE was surprised. But it is always luck of the draw. There's always something you haven't seen, and I got like a whole bunch of questions that were just kind of laser targeted at stuff that I didn't know terribly well. Whereas I actually do have a pretty broad swath of information and expertise, and I missed a couple of questions this time, but I think it did very respectably. There's no TKO is nothing to be ashamed of. Makuga, it was just like, it's kind of a low scoring point. Like, I'm getting penalized for knocking someone out early? I don't understand. But no, it feels real good. Feels real good to be on top.
So it didn't really affect your psyche going into the next match. You were just eager just to get in there again.
I didn't want to lose.
Right.
Like, there's always that little tinge of it. But, there's only so much at stake. Like, I'm not going to get killed if I lose, although I have suggested that as, like, a bonus match. Like, sort of a saw machine kind of thing where, like, the drill gets closer to your head with every question you get wrong. Christian's waffling on that, but I think I'm wearing him down. No, I mean, I didn't want to lose, but ultimately it doesn't really matter if you're nervous or you're excited, or if you're chill or what have you. What matters is whether or not you know the answers. I've never, like, missed a question because I didn't know the answer. Well, that's actually the opposite is true. I've only missed questions because I didn't know the answer. If I know the answer, it doesn't matter how nervous I am. I know it.
So you've never drawn a blank on something you know.
I didn't get Paul Hogan's name out in time.
Okay.
So that's on me. That's on me.
Okay.
That was a mistake. But other than that, yeah, I've done pretty well for myself. I've been kind of nerding out about movies since I was about 10, and it's finally starting to pay off. And how good is that?
Let's see. I'm just trying to because you threw it right at me.
Edit this out. This is great.
Yeah. How soon do you think you deserve to get a title shot?
Well, if I
whoever it may be,
hang on. If I win the free for all, I get the title shot of my choice. So I plan to win the free for all. If that doesn't come together, then I need to win one or two more times. I'm a little hazy on exactly how it works. But as soon as I possibly can, if Christian was not lying. I remember if he said it or if I said it. It's all a blur. I'm in this fog of success. As soon as the JTE match was done, I'm like, when am I coming back? Because I would do this every week if they let me. Every single week.
I think everyone would watch.
It would be like, win Ben Stein's money. I would just come on every week. So as soon as I can get up there, I am happy to. There's a lot of people who I feel very, very confident I would destroy. There's a couple of people who I honestly think might put up a bit of a struggle, but I'll kill them too.
Are you looking for the singles title, or because Roka's got it? Would you try to go after a team title, perhaps, maybe?
The team title is something I've had my eye on, but I need to pick the right teammate, and we are not there yet. Right now, I'm focusing on singles titles. I haven't decided if I want to go intergeekdom, or if I want to go singles, or is there another one?
I think that's it for now.
Pretty much it's one of those two then. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to lead. We're going to see where the road takes me if I do indeed win the free-for-all. But I plan to win the free-for-all, so hopefully we find out real soon.
If you were in the intergeekdom, what would you say might be your weakness or your strength?
When the most recent intergeekdom challenge between Burnett and Navarro was a good match. The Trek questions were really detailed. There was stuff where it's just like, I kind of know that, but wait, what was Persis Kambata's rank? Like, that was a tough question. Star Trek questions get real nerdy. You'll notice this, like in almost any other category. Like, oh, well, in what movie did Jean-Claude Van Damme play twin brothers? Okay, now, what's the name of this fictional city we never go to in Star Wars? Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, they all get real nerdy. So, I'd say I probably need to rewatch some Star Trek movies. Couldn't hurt me to rewatch some Star Wars, but I feel pretty confident about most of it.
What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It is Aaron and Frank here, and we have a special guest with us this evening. He is one half of Team ETC. He is the Mountain, Eliot Dewberry. Sir, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here in the Lion's Den. I know we don't get a lot of love here on the Schmoedown Rundown. Team ETC, kind of the black sheep of the bracket over here, but I'm willing to let bygones be bygones and talk shop with you guys.
We have a moral truce, if you will, for this episode. Yeah. You guys feel like you are disrespected in the league. Why do you think that is?
I think it's like there's generally actually is an amount of dismissiveness towards us it's partly deserved and also partly unfair. When we came into the league, I think the first time we played was like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. But even by that point, the Schmoedown League was a pretty tight-knit group. And we were sort of outsiders at the time. So we got a lot of just like, who the hell are these guys? They suck. I don't want to know who they are. That has sort of continued in a way, just because we are one of the only teams in the league that isn't strictly entertainment. We cover a lot of topics, including entertainment. We also do technology and some political news. We mix it up, just covering a lot of topics. So our expertise is not as refined. We're not as well known in the online, movie criticism, movie reviewing community. So we're at a bit of a disadvantage just right off the bat with that. You get to where we are now with the league, where they've got you got your William Bibbianis and your Mark Bernardins showing up, and these guys are heavy hitters in the movie journalism game. They definitely have pedigree, and it has kind of gotten to a point with the league where it almost should have different tiers based on skills, because I don't know, there's just some really, really smart, knowledgeable people on there now.
Speaking of heavy hitters, what started this beef with yourself, Ricky, and Scott Mantz? Where did that start?
That began with our very first match in the league. I don't even know if it was a league match, but it was a Schmoedown match about 3 years ago. We've known Christian and Mark for a few years going back, worked with them in the past, and they were like, hey, you guys want to come on this Schmoedown thing? It's like a trivia contest. We're like, yeah, sure. It's like, okay, so we're going to have you guys on as a team against these two people, Scott Mantz and Alicia Malone. I'm like, okay. I had never met either of them at that point. We didn't know who they were. But Christian always likes to stir shit up for these matches, and it's a great strategy. So he's like, yeah, you got to get your fans pumped up about it. You got to tell people to make memes and stuff. You got to talk shit on your shows to pump up the match. So we did. And it was a little bit odd because we had never met either of those people. So we're like, all right, well, we do generally just in everything we do, we have kind of an asshole attitude about it. So we were like, all right, we're just going to be really mean to Scott Mantz and Alicia Malone. And it's going to be fine because they're probably a lot smarter than us and more knowledgeable than us. So we're going to be mean and they're going to beat us. And, then there'll be justice in the world. That's not what happened, though, because we won. We ended up beating Scott Mantz and Alicia Malone and upsetting huge amounts of the Schmoedown community. People were complaining about their brackets being busted. It was scandalous. A lot of people saying we didn't earn the victory. It was because of Scott Mantz not knowing how to count, and that there's an ounce of truth to that. Scott Mantz cannot count, still can't. The only thing he can count is movie release dates. Everything else he doesn't know. Addition, subtraction, any of that. But yeah, and then that was our first match, and I don't think we competed much after that. We had one match shortly after that, and then there was kind of a quiet period where we weren't doing much. So literally the one talking point we had to hype ourselves up as a team was that we defeated Scott Mantz, who is considered pretty good at movie trivia. It kind of started off as this thing is like, oh, you might not know who we are, but because we took down Scott Mantz, and then it turned into this thing. We actually really like Scott Mantz. He's a very nice man, a good dude. We've kind of become friends with him. So now anytime we see him in public, we take pictures of ourselves flipping him off or trying to fight him and stuff, and just keeping the rivalry alive. But he's a good man. We are friends. There's no real tension there.
I have a feeling that you are a wrestling fan. Am I correct on this?
I haven't watched wrestling as a fan in probably 15 years, but I was very, very, very into it during the Attitude Era of WWF and the sort of twilight years of WCW. I was 14 or so at the time. So it was, wrestling was huge among me and my friends. We'd watch all the pay-per-views. We'd watch Raw. We'd watch Nitro. And for whatever reason, that left a lasting impression on me. So when the Schmoedown thing started, there's obviously right off the bat, there's a lot of parallels between professional wrestling and the Schmoedown in terms of the format and, talking to each other. So me and Ricky both definitely latched onto a lot of that sort of format. And it's definitely fun to throw in some wrestling references here and there because it's, I don't know, it's a fun way to compete.
That's the point I wanted to bring up because you and Ricky are so good at getting heat, as they would call it in the wrestling business. You guys put so much heat out there and you're so good at it. I mean, I knew that you had to have some sort of wrestling knowledge or something like that. How easy is it for you and Ricky, your partner, to build heat? Is that just something that comes natural to you? Is it something you think about as a process? How does that work?
I don't know. It comes pretty easy to us just based on like the fact. So our show, ETC show, generally our approach to everything is to be like kind of cynical and negative, like to a degree where it's still fun. So, I mean, we spend a large portion of our days figuring out ways to make fun of various things happening in the news. So, yeah, I mean, I guess like doing that so often, it comes easy to us, playfully rib on opponents in the Schmoedown, and I don't know, do it in a way that is funny and makes sense. It was to be honest, with Bibbiani, it was hard because I was like, this guy's probably going to win, and he did. But like, I was watching his matches like a couple nights before the thing, and I was just like, God, like, I'm gonna have to talk twice as much shit just to like even make my presence known in this match, because this he literally is. He's a beast. He knows the answers to questions I wouldn't even know where to begin with. Yeah, with him, it was like, okay, what do I do? Well, his name's kind of funny, so I can just go down to the like grade school level there and start calling him Billy Bibbs. And he's only had 2 matches, so I can call him a one-hit wonder because he won his first match and everyone thought he was like next big thing, but then he lost his next one to JTE of all people. So I decided to do the one-hit wonder angle on him, like, oh, he peaked already, like, you know, nothing to see here. William Bibbiani had his one good match, and that's about it. So, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a matter of, like, looking at their history and who they are and, you know, just finding their personal weaknesses and trying to capitalize on them and trying to at least make people laugh. Like, the key is not being mean to the point where it's, like, actually mean, but just, you know, being mean enough that you maybe get under their skin a little bit and you win over some of the people who were already rooting against the other guy.
I'm sure you don't want to come into these matches as the more or less the bad guy, and yet
I kind of do, actually.
You do? Okay. Well, let me. That's another point I want to make, because you guys are so good at it. Because if people are booing you and just ripping you in the comments, that you are doing it exactly right. You guys are so good at it that people go out of their way to just rip you apart, and so I got to get your feelings on this.
Yeah, well, it does going back to wrestling. I mean, there's always been guys who were heels, and you know the majority of the fans will turn against them, but then there's another percentage of the fans that absolutely love it. I mean, I think for a lot of these guys, it's more fun to be a heel than to be a face. Like some of The Rock's best, like most quotable moments from his wrestling career were like early on when he was a total heel and was just a complete asshole to people. So it is fun to do. And there's also like, this kind of comes back to you guys, but like, we are so sort of like in a way baffled by how seriously the Schmoedown is like now taken by like huge portions of the internet. Like, it is super cool. Like, I think it's awesome seeing Mark and Christian's little trivia tournament becoming like a sport, a spectator sport on the internet. Yeah. But at the same time, it's also like absolutely absurd on a certain level, like seeing people like with brackets and like watching analysis of it, like, and taking it like super seriously, when like, honestly, there's definitely been times where I'm like, I think I'm taking this less seriously than half the people watching it. So there's like an angle of that to it where I'm definitely playing to those people a bit with a lot of the heel behavior, where they're just like, oh God, I hate these guys. They don't take the tournament seriously. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. You're damn right. And I'm going to make you hate me even more right now.
You were just kind of touching on it about seeing where the league has come from when you guys first started. I mean, what's that been like to watch this thing grow and become more widespread and more serious? I mean, for me personally, I really did hate you guys. Like,
yeah,
man, I did. And you know what? And I had to like step back and be like, you know what? And I did say this on one of the shows. I'm like, you know what? They're probably really nice people. I'm sure they're really good. But you know what? When I watched them in the Schmoedown, I freaking hate these people. And
good,
mostly
accomplished.
Yeah, but and here's the thing: I can appreciate someone who's playing that villain type, but also knows their stuff. And that's why I would get on Ricky, because he would talk all this smack and then answer like 2 questions. And and so it was just like bothered me, but I was like, it's trivia. This is not their real personality. So
yeah. And
how
I
do
will
you
say
guys
about Ricky, to defend Ricky for just a second, he does take it seriously. He takes it more seriously than it looks like he does. And I would say so far he has gotten pretty unlucky with question choices. Like we generally past like month or so, probably longer than that. I mean, we watch the new episodes in the office together and we'll play along and try to answer the questions. And like, at least for a lot of the recent episodes, like he's getting them all right in the room. And then when we go to actually compete, like he can't do it when the spotlight's on. So I don't know. Like I'm hoping he does have a match where he gets a chance to actually shine and like prove people wrong.
I think so, because in the tournament in 2015, you guys were initially in. He actually was pretty decent for you guys, and you guys were as a team as a whole. But then once it moved over to Collider and all that, he just seemed to like fall off a cliff there. It was just, and then he still kept. It almost seemed like he didn't even acknowledge his performance. He just kept wanting to talk smack. And I think that was part of the reason why people like myself were just like, what is this guy doing? Like, but it to your credit, it worked. It got people riled up, especially me.
Yeah. Well, it's like, if you can't perform, at least make people remember you for the amount of shit you talk. Because otherwise the Schmoedown would be a lot more boring if people were civil to each other and then just lost.
Yeah, I just was wondering, because now, you walk into these Collider studios and they got all this production and it's, the new wheel and you got all the music and the curtain and, they got all these screens behind you and so much different from when it first started at Buzz. Yeah. So for them to go from that space to where they are now, I mean, the difference in atmosphere, I guess I'm asking.
I mean, it seems a lot more like there's definitely like more pressure on the line for everyone involved, just based on like more eyes being on it. But I mean, the general vibe of the whole thing, I'd say it feels pretty much the same as it did like 3 years ago when they were shooting at AfterBuzz. That studio at AfterBuzz was inside of a residential house that I don't think was zoned properly. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's still like Makuga and Mark and Christian. I mean, it seems the same on their end as it did way back then. Yeah, it's just really cool seeing people that I know such successful decisions as they did with the Schmoedown, because like I would have never guessed 4 years ago that like movie trivia would be something people would like tune in to watch, and not only that, like get super into and have like factions and Facebook groups and brackets and all that. Like it's really interesting.
So going into your singles career, you've beat Matt Nost. Now you've lost to Bibbiani. Riley. Yeah. Do you think you can take Riley? Because you almost had Riley, I think.
He's like another one of those guys. He's very smart. Like I think in terms of like if we did a 24-hour nonstop movie trivia test, he would beat me. But yeah, with him, it was definitely close. I felt good about it. A lot of this is like luck, but it really does come down to knowledge in the end. I think if the wheel had spun a different way, if the questions had been different, I could have taken Riley. Bibbiani, I'd say much bigger challenge. It would be nice. I would like Mark and Christian to throw me an easy one again. My last 2 singles have been like difficult.
Mentioned that I was looking at who has similar record now, and the name that came across me was Jason Inman. I don't know how familiar.
Oh, I know Jason Inman.
So, I mean, is that somebody that you think it would be a kind of you guys are on the same level? I guess I'm asking.
I mean, when I met Jason the first time, like 2 years ago, he was a super nice guy. We met on the set of his DCL Access show. Seemed like a real sweet, innocent kid. And then for the Team Trek versus Team ETC match, the claws came out, and I found out that Jason Inman has the capacity to be very mean and very hurtful. So we have been on the Twitter side of things, been trading insults for pretty much since that match happened. happy to go and settle those differences in a one-on-one match once and for all. So yeah,
you got Ricky taking on Mance, and then you would be the other side of that, I guess.
I think it could be a good set of double matches, 2 singles matches back to back. Maybe during me versus Inman, Ricky and Mance, they have a camera angle on them where they're not allowed to speak. They're just allowed to cringe when people don't know the answer, and then do the opposite for the other match, and settle this once and for all.
I would love to see that happen.
I got a couple more things. This might surprise you a little bit, Eliot, but I'm on your team 100% on this. What the hell was up with that open range question?
I mean, it sucks. The thing that sucks the most about it is I haven't seen that movie in a very long time, but when it came out, I saw it in theaters. I loved it. I saw it a couple more times when it came out on video. I think I owned the DVD for a while. And I remember like the plot of the movie pretty well. I remember a lot of details about the characters really well. I did not remember King Robert Duvall's real name that he mentions once in the movie. And I was at a real loss there. The fact that Bibbiani managed to swoop it up, although he totally guessed. And
I
think I was going to lose to Bibbiani in nearly any like scenario, but in that match, I definitely got some like tough ones where I was like, what? This is on a different level than the usual Schmoedown questions I'm used to getting.
I felt the same way. When that question was read, I was like, what? What is this question?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you and I had the same reaction. I can't imagine what it was like being the person that had to answer it. I was just like, what the hell is this question? Yeah. But let's talk about, let's go back to talking about ETC here for a second. Now, you guys had the loss at the Spectacular Team Trek. It wasn't your best game. You guys have said that before. Going forward, who is a team other than Trek, because we know that you guys have unfinished business with them, what's a team that you want to take on?
Well, to be honest, I don't watch as many of the doubles matches as the singles ones. So I'm not, and also the league is so big now that there are definitely people I just like, I'm not aware of. So I don't know, like, who do you, what would you suggest? JTE and Team Patriots, I think would be a fun one to take on, although that would be quite a fight because those guys do talk a lot of shit too. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Off the top of my head, if I had to pick one right away, I think that you guys would match up very well against Team Top 10, John Roca and Matt Nost. I think that would be a great matchup. I think the back and forth would be incredible. Yeah, that alone I would tune in for.
Okay, yeah. Christian Harloff, if you're listening, set the match.
I mean, that's going to be quite a challenge for you guys if you go up against them, because they were champs and they did kick the crap out of Schmoes to win the belt, their first time. So
well, everyone has good days.
Like, hey, the Schmoes, they got knocked out. So I mean,
well, the good thing is you guys are so entertaining at Team ETC. You're not going to have any shortage of matches. There's always going to be somebody that wants to take you on. I have no doubts about that. So you have Schmoedown job security, if you will.
Good.
For the foreseeable future, I would say. You're on the team with Ricky, Team ETC. You guys have had a lot of success. In singles, you've had some very tough matches. Do you see yourself in the future down the road competing more in singles or more as a team?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I kind of like doing a good mix of both. The singles matches have a lot more like pressure on them. So with doubles, it's nice to be able to I can relax a little bit more. I think the doubles matches are more fun. The singles matches are a little more serious, and fun's always better. But I also, I gotta establish myself as a contender. So yeah, I mean, half and half is I think how I'd like it to be.
And we'll end on this right here. I always like to ask any guests that we have on the show, what do you want to say to the Schmoedown fans? Like anything you want to get out there? Do you want to put the Schmoedown fans on notice? This is your platform. Let them have it.
Do we have enough time?
I got time. I got plenty of time.
Well, I mean, I already said this, but yeah, y'all take this way too seriously. I mean, it's just we're all having fun. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't fun. Like, it's not like the NBA. We're not getting paid. We're doing it because we all like each other, and it's a fun thing to do. So, I mean, I do like the fan fervor that I see. Remind everyone, and I know you know this, but I just want to remind you that it's just a game, and everyone just try to have fun.
I think that's a good message. I think we need to find that happy medium to where we're not harassing people and going to a line where we're going to get blocked. So let's just let's keep that even. All right, Eliot, I appreciate you being on the show, man. I'm glad that we could, have a truce and bridge our gap here between the two factions. Where can you be found online, and tell us what you got going on and things that we should check out?
You can find me on Twitter. It's at Eliot ETC, ELIOT ETC. The YouTube channel, if you just look up ETC Show, you'll find our sort of just like news content that me and Ricky do. And we started a new channel about a month ago called ETC Party Time, where it's we do just a lot of like video games, but more party-oriented video games. We do card games like Cards Against Humanity. We're going to be doing drinking games for St. Patrick's Day, so it's more of just a fun, gamey sort of channel. So yeah, if you like that kind of stuff, check it out.
Yeah, there you go, guys. Be sure to support all Schmoedown competitors like you have in the past. Support Eliot, support Ricky. Go support their channel, support everything that they're doing. Eliot, I want to thank you once again for being here, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No problem, guys. Talk to you soon.
Before we get to our team and singles previews for the week, I wanted to take a second and tell you guys how you can support the show. Please go to the Schmoes Know iTunes feed. Give us a 5-star rating and leave a comment. It helps out everybody on the channel, no matter if you're on your computer, your smartphone, perhaps a tablet.
I'm done with the tablets.
You will be helping us out tremendously in every show on the new SK Plus feed, including this show, the Schmoedown Rundown, After Schmo with Brian Davids and myself, The Wenger Show, Don't Be a Beardo, and the soon-to-be returning Harloff podcast. Please support all of those shows. Be sure to also follow the show on Twitter at SD Rundown.
Not on Snapface and all that, instant chat or whatever it is.
Whatever, Coach. And now back to the show. All right, guys, we're back. We're talking team previews this week. It is 2 new teams. It is the Knight Sisters, Emma Fyffe and Joelle Monique, versus Action Movie Anatomy, Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy. I'm sorry if I said that name wrong. It's 2 unknown teams. They've never played in the league before. It's very hard to make a preview out of this. We don't really know what their knowledge bases are, except for in this case, Action Movie Anatomy. I would say they're quite strong in action films. So, Brian, I'm going to start with you on this one. You see these 2 teams. We know a little bit about these competitors. Who would you give the edge to, and give me a prediction on who you think is going to win?
Between Night's Watch and now Night's Sister, the Schmoedown is trying its hardest to confuse us SK Plus podcasters. So because I know nothing about either team's trivia prowess, I'm going to pick the hometown team, relatively speaking, of Fiefdom and Joelle. I am curious to see what Mr. Roxy Stryer can do, Ben Bateman. So I'm very curious about this match.
Sounds good. Frank, who do you got? What do you got the edge to?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Knight Sisters. Why not? Because, I'm a fan of what Emma Fyffe does, and I like her on the Schmoedown, her post-match interviews. And Joelle Monique, I've seen her around a little bit more now, so I like them both. I don't know really anything about Anatomy of an Action Movie people, team action. I think go by Team Action. I don't know. That's what I saw on Christian's schedule thing.
I'm just going by their biblical name on Twitter.
Okay. Hey, they could be really, really good. And when we have 2 new teams coming in, I just want to see a good match. I don't care about the score, as long as it's tight, and that's all I'm looking for in these kind of matches.
And I want it not to rain in LA, so they don't have to make like a crazy trip in the rain. That would be great.
Exactly. No Alonso Duralde.
Right.
And Christy Lemire situations.
Where Emma Fyffe does a lot of good Schmoedown work. Where she's done some really great Schmoedown work? Last week on the Schmoedown Rundown. You should check it out. It's fantastic. Emma and Joelle are a team that I'm very interested in. Shameless. And I'm interested to see how they do in this match. It's more ladies. I'm into that. I like that. Ben and Andrew, I wish that there was tape on them. I wish I could see what their knowledge base is outside of action films. I don't know. They had a great tribute to Bill Paxton that I caught. That was fantastic. But outside of that, I don't really know. So I'm going to stick with the people that I do know. I'll take the Knight Sisters as well in a clean sweep of Fiefdom and Joelle Monique for the victory. Let's jump into the singles preview. We got 2 matches this week, double header time. The first match is Mark the Android Andraco versus newcomer to the Schmoedown, making his debut, Jay Washington. Now, Frank, I'm going to start with you on this one, even though you already know who won because you were there. Who do you... Just give me a preview. You don't have to tell me who wins or who you think's going to win because we know you're lying.
Here's who's going to win, though. The fan. How you like that answer?
I like it. Brian, what do you think?
I like that, Frank. I know nothing about Jay Washington, and after a big-time debut against the Beast in a big Bizarro match as Andraco, excuse me, I think the Android gets back on track against the rookie competitor. The Android cannot fall to 0-3. I believe that's his record, correct?
Currently sitting at 0-2, yeah, definitely can't go to 0-3.
Well, yeah, technically, he's 0-1 if you want to...
Good point.
Depends how you want to do the Finstock thing, but technically he's 0-1.
Either way, there's no way he's losing 3 straight matches, even if we don't consider the second loss to be an Android loss. But yeah, Android all the way.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that Andraco's going to get back on track. The only thing I really know Jay from is seeing him on Screen Junkies News. That's all I've seen him. So I don't really have a litmus test of the knowledge base. Mark Andraco, seen on many things, and of course his epic clash with Bibbiani will live forever in Schmoedown lore. So I will stick with the Android on this one as well. Let's go to the next singles match. It is the In-Snyder, Jeff Snyder, versus the Wild Man, Josh Makuga. Now, Frank, you didn't see this match, so give me a preview, and who do you think is going to take it home?
Guys, I'm real nervous about this match. I really, really am. This could go either way. Snyder, in his 4 matches, it's been up and down for him. Makuga, this will be his 12th match, so he definitely has the experience, and I'm rooting for Makuga. I want to see everything that he's laid out. I want to see that all come to fruition the way he's envisioned it. So, this is a legitimately tough call. But my heart says Makuga, and I think my brain as well is going to say Makuga.
Fair enough. Your new best friend, Josh Makuga. Brian, how do you see it going down, and who you got?
I'm a giant Jeff Snyder fan. I've been a longtime fan of his in general. But the Schmoedown gods love to work against JTE as well as his associates. And we just saw that with Merle losing the belt. And since Makuga has a potential team title match in the making if he beats Snyder, I absolutely think the universe will see to it that Makuga and his mystery partner will be squaring off against Team Patriots for the belt. So I hate to pick against Snyder, but Makuga will top Jeff Snyder.
This one's tough, man. This one is very tough. Makuga's got the hot hand. I tend to take the players with the hot hand. Jeff Snyder, he had that loss to Stuckman, which just has to eat him alive. I know he wanted to do better, but he had some things going on, so I don't blame him for the loss there. Team Patriots, those guys, man, those guys just continue to get better on the mic. They continue to be better in competition. I don't know how it's going to rub off here. I want to believe in Makuga. I do believe in Makuga, but I just think that this is going to be Jeff Snyder's game. As much as I would like to see Makuga rise and take on Team Patriots in a team match and take on Tom Dagnino as well, I just think that Jeff Snyder is going to put down the Wild Man. So I'm actually going to take the In-Snyder to beat Makuga.
We're just to clarify, we're still getting a Dagnino-Makuga match regardless.
That's still happening. Yeah, that's still on the table. But if Jeff Snyder does win, then the tag team is off the table. So good thing we made that clear. All right, guys, that's the previews. Now we're going to jump into your questions that you submitted on Twitter at SD Rundown. We appreciate it. We're going to start doing these questions every single week. And the person that had the best question this week will win a Blu-ray of your choice, either Pacific Rim, Godzilla from 2014, or the older version of King Kong with Faye Ray, one of your choosing. I will DM you at random. First question comes from Mr. Universe 719. And Frank, you just go ahead and lead this off. What is your dream matchup? Mine is Christian versus Mark.
I agree. I would love to see that match. And I don't know if we're ever actually going to see that. for. If we do see it, it's not gonna be for a very long time. I'm talking like years. I don't see it happen anytime soon. So, but that is my dream matchup. I really would love to see that match, and I just don't know if we're ever gonna get it. But it's a dream. That's why it's a dream.
Brian, what do you think? What is your dream Schmoedown matchup?
Of course, it's hard not to say Christian versus Mark, but in order to be different, right now, my dream match is Drew McQueen versus William Bibbiani.
Okay, since you took mine, I'm gonna have to go.
Whoops.
That's fine. I'm gonna go a little. I have to think here for a second. I think that my second place match we're gonna get next week. It's gonna be Clark versus Riley. That is a dream match that I had in my brain. I think that's gonna be fantastic. Other than that, I guess I would want to see. Oddly enough, I think I would want to see John Campea go up against Andy Signore, just for that battle of these two brands, these two factions. I think it would be. It's Vince McMahon versus Eric Bischoff, and that kind of, if you want a wrestling analogy for it, I think that would be an interesting contest. Let's see here.
One more point. We can't forget about a rematch between Merle and Roca. That would be a dream matchup in some regard, too. I don't think it's happening anytime soon, but on paper, I would love to see those guys duel it out again.
And we'll definitely see them in the free-for-all together. They may end up matching up with each other sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I guess I spoke too soon on the fact that we may not see it for a while. So
sorry about that. This one comes from our good friend Matt Kearns.
Who?
Of the match. I'm sorry.
Who?
Your good buddy Matt Kearns.
Matt, I never heard of him.
Oh wow. Okay. Of the matches that have already happened, what's the one match you wish you could have seen live in the audience? I'll take this one first. I would say Roca versus Merle for the championship, because that was so highly emotional. And I had such a big response to it. I wish I could have been there. What do you think, Brian?
El Mayimbe and Snyder.
Oh,
I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
I'm joking. Okay, serious answer. By far, Roca Harloff, the Mrs. Doubtfire match. There's something about that match that was so up-tempo and high energy. There's just electricity in the air every time I watch that match. That is the one I wish I could have been there for.
What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, I would have picked Roca Harloff. That's my favorite match of all time that they've had. To me, it is the best match that has ever happened in Schmoedown. But if it's not that one, I would pick Top 10 and Patriots. That match, oh man, just waste. It ended on Snyder just going 50-50, like Robert Duvall.
We own the night.
You know, that match, I think that might be I always talk about that Top 10 Rotten Tomatoes team match that happened last year. That was really good. But this Top 10 Patriots one, that's for sure one for the books. That's for sure. I would love to have been there when mayhem just ensued on that studio and JT finally gets crowned. You know, I think that had to been an amazing atmosphere in the studio.
Once we did our end of the year votes, I had to undo my Rotten Tomatoes top 10 vote because of the Patriots match. That's spectacular.
I think it just speaks to top 10 in general. I mean, and Roca. I mean, that dude's involved in some of the best matches of the Schmoedown history.
I've asked this question to you before, Aaron, but I'm curious to see what Frank thinks. Do you guys ever see Roca rebranding himself like a Mick Foley or plenty of other wrestlers who have altered their personas over the year? Even The Undertaker has tweaked with his persona a bit over the years. At one point, he was more of a biker than his previous Grim Reaper look, for lack of a better word. Do you ever think they'll evolve their personas as we know them?
I really don't think so. I mean, I'll never say never, but I think Roca, with the outlaw and the way he's portrayed right now, I think he's really found. I mean, he's finding a lot of love the way he is right now. So I can't see him willingly wanting to change that up. But again, I'll never say never. But I find it very doubtful that he would mess with the character that he's built up to this point.
I think he can just stick with it for now. I think that's what I've said in the past. Just stick with it. Stick with the outlaw thing. It's working for him.
But even The Rock, even Triple H, they've kept the same personas, the same characters. They've just made some aesthetic changes. They've done a little renovations, if you will. I don't know.
Needs to be a t-shirt. All right, let's go to the next question. This one comes from Bobby Fodera, who asks, what's the first match that hooked you on the Schmoedown? Frank?
So I initially got into the Schmoedown by watching the Merle Campion match. That got me interested to go back, but what really ended up hooking me was the Makuga Harloff match in the 2014 tournament. That match right there, because I wasn't even very familiar with the Schmoes, because I haven't been following them for very long. So watching that and the live in conjunction with the live show they did, that really hooked. That's the one that really hooked me. To go back, start from the beginning, and binge through all of them.
The infamous Blue Fairy.
That's
what about
right.
you, Brian?
It was definitely the Blue Fairy, Broderick stuff. That era right there. I guess you could call it the pilot season, the early days of the Schmoedown. Blue Fairy, Broderick, all of the Trial of JTE kind of added to that. That's when everybody realized there's something delicious cooking here, to quote Gus Fring. And look at it now. That was just the tip of the iceberg.
I don't know about what I could say is the match that hooked me. I can tell you the first one I saw, I believe, was Finstock versus Tiffany Smith. That was the first one that I saw. I didn't really know what I thought, and then I can think of Nerdist versus Schmoes. That was a match that I liked because I'm a big fan of the Nerdist channel, and I like what they brought to the table. So I would say it's probably that one, Nerdist and Schmoes for me. I got a couple more here. This one comes from Rob Irvine Jr., who asks, if you had to create a dream stable of 4 competitors, hold on, there's a qualifier. If you had to create a dream stable of 4 competitors, including one team, who would you choose? Anybody ready to answer on that one? I need a second.
I would take Roca and Christian, and I need a team.
Yeah.
So yeah, why not? I'll take Roca, Christian, and I'm gonna throw it back to Box Office Breakdown with JTE and Finstock. That's my stable. That's my stable.
Okay. All right, Brian, do you have a stable ready to go?
Patriots, Beast, McQueen.
See, I'm also have the Beast and McQueenie in my stable, and I would go Beast, McQueenie, Nerds Watch. Just from what I've seen so far.
Interesting.
I mean, you got Knapsack. I mean, that's great.
How about just Sam Witwer as the stable?
He's the whole stable.
Exactly.
Witwer versus the world.
Let's see. All right, this will be the last one. This is from BryGuy75W, who asks, what doubles team has the advantage to take down the Patriots? I was surprised that Team Trek was defeated by them. I think the team that matches up the best against Team Patriots is Team Top 10. And I think just by watching the match they had at the Spectacular, you can tell how close they are. And if only Matt Nost would have had a better night, what a different match I think it would have been. So I would say Top 10 is the number 1 team I think can take down Team Patriots.
IGN for me.
What do you guys think?
IGN by far. They are dangerous. They are scary. I didn't see any weaknesses in those guys. They're going to rise up quick.
What do you think, Frank?
I'm going to take Top 10. These guys, you know what? You're right, Aaron. If it wasn't for Nose having that down of the game, they're retaining the belt. And here's why I'm so high on them. they're answering through 6 of their matches. They have 2 knockouts. They're answering nearly 80% correct. They are 8 for 10 on steal opportunities. They're earning 71% of the possible points that are, that they could possibly earn. These guys were just mowing through people. They caused some bad luck because JTE, for whatever reason, just has that aura around him, whether it's around him or his opponent. But top 10 to me, I think, is the best team probably ever for now the Schmoedown has ever seen. And that's including taking out the Schmoes and Patriots. Patriots, I feel like, are somewhat of a, I don't know, fraud's a strong word, but I'm not sold on them as Patriots, and I know they retained the belt, but that was against, Trek. So, yeah, it's just, to me, it's top 10 all the way.
Frank, can I ask you, what were the percentages, what were the differences between Rocha's questions answered correctly versus No's questions answered correctly before No's recent slump? How big a discrepancy or difference is there between their contributions to their respective team?
Let me see if I have
just team matches. We're talking about Nost a lot lately, like he's slumping, but overall, who is carrying that team, or is it pretty even keel?
Hold on a second.
Sorry.
Damn it, Brian.
I just thought it was an interesting question.
God.
You know what? Because I've been slacking on the team side of things, but I hope I have this. So I can give you basically the 2015 tournament numbers for Rocha Notes, because that's all I have that I verified, because I haven't. So Rocha, and I did it through individual questions. So Rocha was 13 of 17 throughout their run in the tournament, and Notes was 14 of 17. So they were pretty even in that 2015 tournament. And that's the only numbers I have I can verify for right now. I haven't calculated or passed a couple matches with the Schmoes and the Patriots yet.
Well, it's safe to say that Nost was in a slump, and based on his prior performance, that indicates he'll get back on track. So,
yeah, I mean, like that Patriots match was completely uncharacteristic. Besides the singles, that team match was completely uncharacteristic of his run up until that point. He was pretty solid. He was, if not just as good as Rocha. So they were pretty even. And that's why I still see them as juggernauts, because they collectively answered 81% in that 2015 tournament. So,
and they just work so well together anyway. They just have such a great team dynamic from the show and all that stuff. That's going to do it for this week's episode. I want to give a special thanks to Eliot Dewberry for coming on the show and allowing us to have a truce of sorts between the show and Team ETC. Wish them nothing but the best in the future. Yep, I have my fingers crossed. All right, before we get out of here, Frank, what do you got going on, man? Where you can be found? Where can people find those great stats of yours?
Well, weekly I do the recap on schmozo.com. You can look for that on Mondays. You can also tweet at me at FrankieJ29. I've been posting a lot more stats on my Twitter feed and in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Facebook page, so that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Brian Davids, sir, when people are not hearing you on After Schmo every single week on the SK Plus channel, where can they find you? What else you got going on?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at BDF331. Check out more of my work in regards to TV and film at filmschlubspodcast.com. And guys, thanks so much for having me on. It was a real treat to hear Frank's behind-the-scenes details, if you will.
Fantastic. And as always, you can follow me at AT Titanium. You can find me here every Saturday on the Schmoedown Rundown. Find me also on After Schmo with the aforementioned Mr. Brian Davids, breaking down everything in the Schmo Lighter universe weekly on the SK Plus channel. And it's